Hey, good morning, everybody. What's going on? What's going on? I thought that I will hop in and say hello. And I don't really have an agenda for today's conversation, actually. I just wanted to come in and really answer questions and just talk about a lot of things that I'm sort of noticing, things that are on my mind today, things that relate to wealth and life and everything in between. And what's up on Instagram? How you doing? My Instagram is the real Boyce Watkins. And welcome to drboycetv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. This is where we gather for smart Black conversations where we want to become better people and we want to learn and we want to grow. Shout out the city that you're from. Shout out your city. Constantly Conscious says, Boyce for life. I love you too. Thank you so much. Hey, Tony. Hey, Antonio. How you doing? All right. So let me tell you what was on my mind today. Okay. First off, I will talk about some stock stuff later on if that's what you like. If you'd like to hear me talk about financial stuff all the time, I love to talk about that. And actually, everything relates back to economics. I talk about a lot of topics because the reason that people don't understand where Black wealth is going, the reason people don't understand why the racial wealth gap keeps growing, is because you don't understand that most of the things that you think have nothing to do with money have everything to do with money. The things that you think are not even related to money are directly related to money. And so, one of the things that was on my mind today was there was a young Black woman who asked me about marriage, and she was on some clubhouse group, and they were going back and forth. You know, the men had their perspective, the women had their perspective, and she was just talking about how she's kind of losing hope. You know, she says she's losing hope because she just doesn't understand. She's like, I don't know what it takes to make these Black men want to get married, and I said, yeah, well, there's a lot of frustrated men out here, and she, but then she talked about some of the stuff that she's seen with women and the changes, and there are men who feel that things like feminism have made it harder to figure out how to negotiate relationships, and I was intrigued with the conversation because one of the things that you should understand when you're talking about things like marriage and relationships and all that is that every single study, every single wealth study I could show you, and I've seen them all because you guys know my background. I'm a finance PhD. That's what I do. Most of the studies really will show you that if you have a community that has strong families, then you will typically have a community that has decent amounts of wealth. Like their wealth and family are just really deeply connected. And if you go to most countries and you look at, you find the richest people in those countries, it's very rare that you're going to find a wealthy person who doesn't have some family, who doesn't have a wife and children and all that. And people who aren't economically mature don't understand that. They're like, well, if you are rich, if you're a rich man, why don't you have a pack of girlfriends and just kind of run wild and go party all the time? Well, um because they know that will ruin your wealth. Like running around laying down with every woman within a 100-mile radius will put your income at risk. Like Deshaun Watson right now. Anybody follow Deshaun Watson with the Houston Texans? Deshaun Watson, his ass going to end up broke. He's signing a $200 million contract, and believe me, every single one of those women from that massage parlor is going to go in there and take every ounce of his money that they possibly can. They are going to rape him financially like nobody's business. They're like, "Ooh, he is a carcass, and we are a bunch of hyenas, and we're going to eat on that carcass all day long." Because Deshaun Watson, he created like a messy situation. Like what in the hell is going on that you are creating all these vulnerable moments with all these damn nasty ass women at massage parlors? I'm not judging it. You're a man. You can do whatever you want to do. That's fine. But my Lord Jesus, like if you don't understand any type of sexual discipline or the fact that you have something to protect also. Like maybe as men think, men are the hunters, and we want to go get the women, and we want to go and get the blah, 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 right? Well, yeah, but but some of these women be hunting your ass too. Sometimes you might think you're the wolf, but you might really be the sheep. You might think that you are the predator, but you're actually the target. You're the prey. And so I'm not sitting here trying to say that these women are making things up. I'm not trying to say that it's true or untrue. I don't think anybody knows. I'm also not here to say that we necessarily know which lines of appropriate versus inappropriate behavior were crossed. I think that smart men, should be aware that the lines of what is defined as appropriate behavior have really changed. I personally, honestly, at least, maybe I'm old school with this. I don't know. But my thought is, look, if you pay somebody to come to a massage parlor and they know what it is, and it's going to have a happy ending, there's nothing illegal about that. There's nothing exploitative about that if both parties signed up for it. And the reality of life is that, trade-offs for sex and money occur all the time. It happens all the time. When I was, even in my own life, when I went to LA and I made a movie, I swear to God, when I was in LA making a movie, I was surprised by the fact that there were women who literally who came up and said, you know, what do you want? You're the boss. You're the person who's paying for this movie. I want to be around you, and you know what it means. You know what I'm talking about. I'm not, and I wasn't into that. Like that's not. I'm not that sucker. I'm not the guy that's gonna get you. You're not gonna catch me with the banana in the tailpipe. But I was really curious about it. I was very curious about it because I saw that there's a culture that just says, look, if you have the man in charge, there are going to be starving actresses who are looking for opportunities. They're like, look, I'm having sex every day anyway. I might as well have sex with a guy that can pay some bills, right? And this is something that happens all throughout society. And for some reason, we've decided to act like that doesn't occur. We've decided to act like anytime those trade-offs occur, that somehow it must be the man's fault. It must be because the woman was an innocent little victim, like a little child. Women are not children. Women are grown-ups. And that the men are just somehow these predators who are exploiting people. In some cases, that might be true, but in many cases, it's not true. And so with Deshaun Watson, I don't know what's true and what's not true. But what is true is that it doesn't matter what's true. See, what is true is that it doesn't matter what's true. At this point, Deshaun, they've got him by the testicles. They are holding his balls like this, right above with the guillotine. They got the little butcher knife, and they're about to chop his testicles off in public, and they're about to rape that man for at least $100 million. So my point is to say that that when you're talking about things like wealth, accumulation of wealth, the preservation of wealth, things like that, I want you to compare LeBron James to Deshaun Watson. LeBron, two talented athletes, two men who attracted a lot of women because they were very successful at what they did, and one guy is about to be a billion or just became a billionaire. The other one is about to get like his ass handed to him financially. He's literally about to go through $100 million worth of payoffs for things that he may or may not have done wrong. Right. So anyway, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe if you haven't done it yet. Also, if you want to take a look at some free stuff that we have in the Black Business School, like our Powernomics training, which we do every Wednesday night. We're doing one tonight. Dr. Claude Anderson said he wants to be here tonight. So if you'd like to join us for Powernomics training, it's free to the community. Just go to boycewatkins.com, or if you're on Instagram, just hit the link in the bio. You can join us tonight at 8:30. So anyway, let me keep going. All right. So today when I was talking to this young lady about things like marriage, and here's one of my thoughts on this, right? And I hope it's okay if I bring Uncle Boyce in the building to kind of give a perspective that's not based on necessarily any particular type of science, other than the fact that there is some financial science to say that this does make sense. I think that if you're thinking about things like marriage, you probably want to approach it in a very deliberate, very conscious sort of way. You can't approach it in the unconscious way that we tend to approach our relationships. Love and relationships and sex and lust and attraction are all very unconscious processes. You feel a certain way, you make a move, you're almost, it's almost like you're on a drug. Like when you fall in love, you literally almost like a person that's on drugs. That's what the studies show. And the next thing you know, you end up in these situations, right? Bad relationships, got kids everywhere, or a child with somebody you don't like, or messed up marriage that's costing you all your money, things like that. I think that a person who's smart, I think that a smart wealth builder in the Black community right now today is a person who approaches marriage or even dating the same way you approach business. I really do. I really believe you can't separate the two. Like you can't have a well put together, super tight business life and then have a raggedy ass dating life and expect that one is not going to spill over into the other. Because basically you're going to end up shitting where you eat, and it's going to ruin everything. Everything's going to taste like shit. Even your success will taste like shit. And why do I say that? Well, because the thing is that I figured this out. I was talking to a young lady about that today who was asking me some questions about it. Black people are confused as hell about relationships. People are just confused. The men are confused because Feminism kind of makes things weird, like where you're like 1 minute you're supposed to be, you're supposed to be this leader of the household. The next minute you're supposed to let her lead, and the next minute you're supposed to lead again. Then the next minute you're supposed to change this, and it's very confusing, I think, for a lot of men, especially when you are talking about relationships where you have women who want it all, who want to go do their thing. They want to become professionals too, and they want to do all the things that were traditionally done by men and sacrifice for their careers and everything else. A lot of young Black girls grew up in households where their mothers told them, "Don't think about boys, think about your job." Give me a yes or no if you grew up in a household like that, where your mother just told you, "Don't think about the boys, think about the degree. Don't think about the boys, think about that. Think about your profession. Don't think about the boys, think about your money." Right? And so you got these two people coming together, and men, we're kind of ambitious men anyway. I don't know about the losers. I can't speak for the losers, but ambitious men, we're already wired like that. Like I was already, when I got with my wife, I was already wired to go, 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 go. I've been like that since I was 19 years old. I have been the ultimate hustler since I was 19 years old. When I was a kid, I literally was the guy who stayed in the library extra hours, went, took extra classes, pushed extra hard in order to be successful because I wanted to be somebody, right? So you're bringing the energy where you got these two go, go, go type people in a marriage. And on one hand, it's a good thing because you have kind of this old overdose of accomplishment. You got these two superstar people that are kicking ass and taking names and all that. But the downside of that is that's a lot of masculine energy. That's not, it doesn't mean that she can't be a woman and everything else, but that's real aggressive energy. And what I have found is that men we respond differently to masculine aggressive energy than we respond to feminine energy. Feminine energy brings out, I can only speak for myself, I'm probably telling myself, but when I see feminine energy, I become more protective and more loving and nurturing. When I see a competitive energy, I can sometimes end up competing. Like you can end up being like, okay, well, no, wait, it's about me. No, it's about me. No, it's about me. It's about me. Well, what about my stuff? What about my, and then next thing you know, you get this complete shit show where two people are literally in a relationship and they become competitors with each other. And you're dealing with your spouse not as this nurturing, loving little creature that you got to protect, but it's like another dude. It's like two dudes in the locker room. Like when dudes, like if you have two guys that are both football players, they kind of just stay out of each other's space. Like they don't, men are territorial, men are kind of mean, stuff like that. And so sometimes I think I see all that energy popping up in relationships, right? And then there's a point where maybe the woman doesn't feel like she's getting the type of protection she deserves as a woman, and the man doesn't feel he's getting the support that he would like to have as a man. And this would that term alpha female, I think, could be appropriate. I don't know. But it's not a dismiss. It's not a diss on the alpha female mindset, but it does say that dealing with an alpha female is very different from dealing with a really feminine person that's really there to be in a more supportive kind of role. They kind of says, "Go, baby, you go take first place. You jump out there out front. I'm going to sit in the back and I'm going to support you in the back." Right. But then you got two people that want to be out front. That requires negotiation. It requires a lot of negotiation. There's a lot of awkwardness there. And I think the awkwardness is also added to from the fact that in many cases, both of those people grew up in a household without a father. So they never really saw a father in the house every day that their mother was constantly working with and negotiating with to make the household a balanced place to live. I was lucky enough to see that. I saw my mother get out of my father's way. When my father got real, like high testosterone, my mother would just be like, "Well, that's your father. Just leave him alone." Right. But the same thing would happen. But then I also saw my father submit to my mother. When my mother got, when she got riled up about something, maybe it's her Jesus or whatever it was, my father knew like, okay, you better watch out, or no, we will respect your mother no matter what. Right. And these sorts of negotiations are things that a lot of people don't get to see anymore. And I think that when you sort of bring two people together who never saw any of that, who are trying to figure it all out in a world where you don't know what you're going to get when you're dating somebody, it becomes confusing as shit. It becomes very confusing. And when it becomes confusing and then it becomes chaotic and then there are problems and issues, all these things are going to pretty much murder your ability to really go and accomplish things you want to accomplish in terms of business. The benefits you might get from a great partnership between two ambitious people, you lose all that because everybody's boxing and fighting and ego tripping and going back and forth. And so here's my suggestion for anybody that wants to overcome this. This is Dr. Boyce, the finance guy, and Uncle Boyce together, coming together to share this perspective that I really think you may want to consider. Treat your marriage or your relationship like a business, and with every business, you must properly invest in that business. That means that you, when they use that term marriage license, I think that license term should be a real term. Like, I think marriage license should be similar to, like, say, a driver's license, where you shouldn't be allowed to do it, and you shouldn't allow yourself to try to do something like that unless you truly got a license that shows you how to handle that bitch. Marriage, when two people have different agendas and different expectations, it can become a complete shit show if I'm going left and you're going right, and vice versa. And so, to me, a license would mean uh, deep levels of training to prepare you to negotiate the wild bull of a situation that you've created for each other. And that means, and let me just tell you, I'm a big believer in therapy. You know, I married a therapist, and we worked with therapists, and I love therapists. Therapists are my favorite people because therapists will help you fix your shit, help you see your shit. I'm telling you, if you haven't, shout out to Kendrick Lamar for putting that in his album. All y'all, everybody in here, get some damn therapy. These therapists will help you because they can not only help you see your own stuff, but also they can give you tools to deal with things. So with my therapist, who I think is awesome, I might literally be in a situation where I'm about to go and strangle another black person or fire them or cuss them out or whatever. And I'll stop myself and I will text her and say, okay, so and so did it again and it's pissing me off and I'm about to call and cuss him out. What should I do? And my therapist will be like, don't do that, boys. Here's a better way for you to handle it. Right. And what that does is that allows me to preserve the relationship. Right. It allows me to approach the situation without allowing my own trigger to cause me to ruin something that could be beneficial for both of us. Right. So ultimately, what I would say to you is that if you are serious, if you're trying to have a relationship that benefits you as opposed to one that hurts you and causes you pain, if you're trying to have a marriage that accelerates your life as opposed to slows it down and ruins it, I really encourage you to take that term marriage license very seriously. When you pick a person that you're choosing to do this really complex thing with called marriage, find somebody who's willing to learn just like you are, who's willing to do the work in therapy, meaning with help, not just figure it out. The problem that I think people run into is they try to do it. Everything's do it yourself. People are always trying to DIY their way through this thing called life. And some shit is not a DIY type situation. You shouldn't be just trying to figure it out based on your instincts and based on, well, I just thought that, well, if he said that to me, then why would I think blah, blah, blah? Well, because you're a woman and he's a man, or because you're a man and she's a woman. That's why everything that makes sense to you doesn't make sense to him, because you're different. You're different. And not only are you different in terms of gender, but you might be different in terms of background. Nobody knows. That's the thing. Remember, marriage is an institution like a corporation is. A corporation, if you look up the definition of the term corporation, a corporation is pretty much a nexus of relationships. That's how corporations are defined. That's how they were defined in my business management class, is a nexus of relationships, like a web, just a bunch of relationships that are maintained to hold together this thing, this institutional thing. So marriage is the ultimate nexus of relationships. And so when you're in that nexus of relationships, those relationships have to have rules and expectations, right? And you have to be able to manage that. The problem is that if I come in with my rules and my expectations, and you come in with your rules and your expectations, it becomes a shit show. So at some point, we have to have a prolonged discussion about which rules of yours we're going to apply, which rules of mine we're going to apply, and what the expectations are of this relationship, or we're going to have some problems. And what's making it more difficult, I think, is that maybe in the 1940s, the rules were consistent. They were very consistent. Men kind of knew what to expect when they chose to marry a woman, right? Women knew what to expect from a man. They knew, the men were trained to lead a household in a certain way. The men, the men knew they couldn't just show up for the vagina and run. They had to actually earn the right to be in a woman's bed. They had to earn the right to call themselves the head of the household. If the bills weren't paid, then it was the man's fault, right? Now you don't have that anymore. Now you've got all kinds of agendas and weirdness coming in. You've got women who are okay with doing everything that men used to do. Women who are literally taking care of their boyfriends like their children, like they have another child. And maybe that's normal for them because they grew up watching their mother take care of their baby brother in the same way because the father wasn't there. So the baby brother becomes baby boy and the mother is doing everything for the son. So the little girl grows up thinking, I'm supposed to be the head of the household. I'm the leader of this house. Right. And then so she finds a man who fits right into that. And he's like, yeah, well, in my household, my mama did everything too. So for some people, that just works. That's just what they choose to do. I don't. So if you're a person who doesn't agree with that, or you don't fit into that, and you run into somebody who's expecting that, this was actually something I actually ran into that one time. I think where I dated a woman a long time ago who I think was surprised that I wasn't incompetent. Like I think that because her brother was a loser and her father was a loser, she thought that I was a loser too. And I looked and when I asked her about her ex-boyfriends, it was loser, loser, loser. I was like, okay, he's an alcoholic. He's a bum. Well, you ain't getting that from me because I wasn't built to be no goddamn loser. My father would not respect me if I was a loser. If I did half of the things that those guys did, my father would tell me, what the hell are you doing? He would say, that's not what a man does. Right. So I was like, I don't know what you're used to, but I don't fit the description of any of that. So what happened was we bumped heads. We bumped heads because I was okay with being the leader of my life. I did not need your help. No, I did not need you to pay for anything because I was making six figures at the time. I got this. I got this. Right. And I think that for her, because she was so used to black men that come up short, she became very uncomfortable with the idea of dealing with a man who actually had it under control. Right. And so ultimately it's I think that I wasn't the right man for her. I think that another loser would have been the good choice for her. Because so sometimes the thing that we complain about the most might end up becoming the thing that we pick because that's what we're used to. Right. And so ultimately, I think that in general, getting that therapy, getting that help, like getting that counselor, that guide, that person that really is a true professional that can really help you navigate your relationship, that can teach you how to talk to each other, that can teach you how to resolve disputes properly, that could teach you little basic shit that everybody should know. Like, you ain't got to raise your voice in a marriage. You don't have to raise your voice. No matter how mad you get, you ain't got to go yelling and screaming and cussing at your partner. Why can't you say the same thing in a regular tone of voice? And you don't have to tolerate somebody raising their voice at you. All these things escalate conflict. And if you get into these patterns that cause the escalation of conflict, it ends up ruining the relationship. And then when things get sort of harmed, what is your repair process? Do you have a procedure that you know to go through that will help you repair once somebody's feelings are hurt, or once somebody's mad, or once somebody does something that the other person thinks is unfair? I mean, it's a process. What I really think, I can just say this in terms of being married myself. Um, I happen to like marriage, just because I like having a good teammate. I really do. I like the fact that my wife is a absolute hardworking woman. She's not a stay at home and bake the cookies type woman, even though she could probably bake better cookies than almost everybody on this podcast right now. But that's not who she is, right? She's a professional and she's a runner and she's a a high level scholar, and she's got her own goals and dreams, right? And that required me to really take the time to look at who she is and really understand who she is so that I can know how I want to fit into all of that, right? What areas, okay, what areas does she need support? What area does she need somebody that's going to listen to her so she can vent from what she's feeling at a certain time? What areas am I going to step in and become the man? Like, because I'm an accomplished scholar myself, right? And it's not a traditional kind of relationship. It's not a traditional simple marriage. It's not one of those caveman situations where I just run home, come home with a club and hit her upside the head and tell her to make me some chicken. Like, that's not going to work. But at the same time, it's not a overly modern scenario where I have to somehow take a feminized role in the relationship, because I'm not going to tolerate that. That's not going to be fun for me. So communication becomes really important, right? Communication in terms of saying like, no, I'm not. That doesn't make me feel good. That makes me feel emasculated. We're not doing that, you know. But then also at the same time, when you talk about masculinity, I think on the internet there's like for some segments I've seen really distorted perceptions of masculinity that are absolutely harmful. That will lead you to an early death. That will lead you to bad situations. That almost make you into a predatory kind of figure. And I really encourage people to kind of reject some of that because I think that masculinity also means being masculine enough to know when you can let your masculinity go for a minute, when you don't have to necessarily have ego be the first thing that you lead with. I find that being the head of a household is a tremendous honor, and it's a great thing to do for the Black community. That's what I really love about it. But at the same time, it requires a lot of humility that I think a lot of people who've never done it don't understand. So any guy who kind of thinks that the man is always supposed to tell everyone else what to do and that everyone else's feelings don't matter and that you can just sort of just march around and pull your penis out on the table everywhere you go, those are not really real men. Those are men who've been watching too much goddamn TV. They've been listening to too many rappers. And you see rappers, look at rappers and look at their lives. Rappers have shitty lives. Rappers, I mean, they give you this false perception of this hyper masculinity, like I'll slap a hoe and ain't no hoe gonna tell me what to do, right? And look at them. I mean, but look at their lives. Most of them are broke. Most of them are hooked on drugs. They're gonna die as drug addicts. Their children won't respect them. When you got baby mamas everywhere. Ain't no kids gonna respect you when you got kids. Your kid's gonna look at you and be like, "Damn, daddy, you have no discipline. You a scrub, daddy. Like you just went around and splattered your seed in every woman within 100-mile radius, and now you crying about it." A lot of them are dying young. They're dying in their fucking 20s. You're not supposed to die at 23 years old, but for us, that shit's normal. We think that's normal. It ain't normal to die in your 20s. It ain't even normal to die in your 50s. It ain't even normal to die. It ain't even normal to die in your 50s, but your 20s and 30s, my Lord Jesus. And so when the one of the dominant influences on the mind of the Black male is the hip hop artist who is doomed for an early death, that right there tells you that we need more critical thinking in our community. We need more thoughtful intelligence out there. I don't care if you get it from somebody like me or if you get it from somebody who went to prison for 20 years who learned it the hard way or whatever. But at the end of the day, I feel bad like for some of those guys. Like when I hear them talk, I'm like, wow, either the wrong person taught you how to be a man or nobody taught you how to be a man, and you're just making all this shit up based on some weird fantasy you have about what manhood is supposed to look like. That's literally the weird thing. And then also, I think in terms of the community, one of the dynamics that people don't talk about is that, and I've mentioned this before. This was in the article in the magazine called The Economist. They explained that because of Joe Biden's mass incarceration policies, that there is an imbalance in the number of marriage eligible Black men versus marriage eligible Black women. They literally exterminated about 40 or 50% of your Black male population of a generation ago. And so what that did was that took a lot of your fathers out of the home. Millions of Black men were going to prison, getting hooked on drugs, or getting killed in some old gangster shit. And next thing you know, you have a whole generation of children that did not have a father in the house. They don't even have the first clue on what a father's supposed to do. So for a lot of those boys, if your father never did what he was supposed to do, a lot of guys think, well, like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, like, which is nothing, right? Because my dad did nothing, so I'm doing nothing. That's where you get these guys that have 33 kids and think that that's normal and all that. There's no way, there ain't no man I could ever think of who has 15, 20 children who has a normal father. There is no man anywhere that can be like, I have 20 kids with 18 babies mamas and my dad was a stand-up guy. I guarantee you 99 times out of 100, if you look back, if you take the apple back to the tree and you look at the father, you're gonna see a scenario where the father wasn't there to provide the kind of guidance. Like if I went to my daddy and said, yeah, dad, I got 9 girls pregnant last year. my father would slap me. He would be like, what are you doing? Like, are you stupid? Do you know how much money that's gonna cost? What about them kids? Those kids that they're gonna hate you. You can't, what's wrong with you? Like he would literally be trying to send me to a therapist. So a lot of this weird imbalance, it just comes from an imbalance in the ecosystem. They got rid of your men. So a lot of the you mix that with media where hip hop music is promoting just a really false image of what a black man's supposed to look like. A lot of these guys, when I see them, I see walking death. I see a guy who's not going to live that long. You think about it. If you throwing away all your money, having sex with every woman that moves, running around carrying a gun, threatening to shoot people, and then rapping about who you shot. And then getting high on drugs every single day. You're going to end up as a drug addict, or you're going to end up in prison, or you're going to end up dead. You're not built for long life. You're not built for old age. You're not built to live to retirement. You're going to die young, most likely, or you're going to get incarcerated young, and then no one will ever see you again. And so this false image of the black male is being pushed out through the music. So they push this image out, and then people see it, and it looks really cool. It's very deceptive because it looks very cool when it's happening. It looks like, okay, this is it. This guy, look, he's got all the money and all the fame and all the respect and all that. This is before the RICO charges hit, when he's getting 180 years in prison because he's running with some group of guys and they're all killing people and they're rapping about it, right? Like this is before that, right? But you think that this is a model of success because maybe you haven't been trained to sort of see the whole process all the way through. This is where OGs in the black community are so very important, because that guy who's 50 years old, who did 15 years in prison, can circle back and say, no, 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 no. Let me tell you how the story ends. There's more to this story. But those guys, those voices don't get amplified. Those voices get ignored. The voice you hear is the short-term voice. So it's just like investing. You have some investments that look really good and really flashy as good short-term investments, but what people don't show you is that it might be a horrible, horrible long-term move. Right. So you bought all the Dogecoin in 2020 because Dogecoin went up by 20% last week, but nobody has explained to you. A Warren Buffett has not sat you down and said, no, let me tell you, I've seen this 1,000 times. Here's how that story usually ends. So ultimately, there's a misclassification of the image of the black male that's being perpetuated all throughout media. The men who are really, really doing the best work in the community, the ones who are taking care of the kids, protecting the women, who are raising the families, who are investing in the community, those guys are boring. Those are guys who don't get put on TV. And so next thing you know, the women themselves are chasing the guys who are the most interesting guys, right? The fun guys, right? The guys who have all the status, right? Again, that blingy rapper who's going to die by the age of 35, he seems really cool. If you're a 24, 25-year-old girl who never ever saw a real man on a day-to-day basis in her household. A lot of women who grew up with real hardworking men in the household, they don't go for the flashy shit because that's just not what they honor. That's not what they admire. But maybe the women who who never saw a father in the household on a daily basis, but saw their favorite rapper on TV that they looked at as a heartthrob, they might see that guy who is living on the edge, and that becomes appealing to her. So it becomes this weird, awkward ecosystem. And that's where when you hear people talk about women maybe in that Lori Harvey stage or whatever that are chasing after certain guys, certain types of men, I think that frustration is very real. I think that there are men who are saying, look, I don't want to have to go get shot to impress you. I don't want to have to go to jail to impress you. I'm not a thug. I'm not trying to be nobody's gangster. I'm just trying to graduate from college and get a good job so that I can take care of my family. I think those guys get very, very frustrated, especially in their 20s, because you're just not the cool guy at that point. Right now, the cool guy's he's going to be dead or in jail by the time he's 30. And then she's going to circle back around and look up your number. But it's very frustrating when you're in your 20s and women don't see that. And I know that. I saw that. I mean, because I wasn't the cool guy in my 20s. I was in graduate school. I was studying. I wanted to build a future for myself. So I was in it for the long haul, not the short haul. And I literally can recall the time where I was dumped by a girl who told me that I was too boring. I wasn't interesting because all I wanted to talk about was preparing for the future and going to school and all that. And maybe I was boring. I don't know. But she literally, I'm not kidding. She literally started dating a guy who killed people for a living. And I remember thinking, How the fuck am I going to compete with that? I'm 24 years old. I don't want to have to go kill somebody to impress you or to make you think I'm a real man. I know I'm a real man, but I don't think killing people should be a requirement for me to show you that I'm a real man. Well, eventually, the man that she chose, he ended up getting 14 years in prison, and that was her life, right? That was, But here's the thing: there were also great women who didn't see all of that, and these tended to be women who, in many cases, it was women who grew up with a solid man around. So it was either their father or maybe an uncle or grandfather who was down to earth, very consistent and just a good guy, right? And those were the women who would appreciate someone like me. So my wife, for example, her father was a professor just like me. So she grew up not wanting, she didn't want the jock, she didn't want the dope boy, she didn't want the rapper, she wanted the smart guy. In her mind, the professor or the future professor was as exciting as dating the rapper. Right. So that was someone that was for me. I met my wife in the library. I did not meet her at the club. I did not meet her on Tinder or so I'm swiping left and swiping right. I met her in the library because we were both there studying because we both wanted to build our future together. So really, I think in general, when you're talking about how you want to pursue your relationships or your marriage or things like that, I encourage you to take a really business minded approach. I really think that when you evaluate human beings, you can't look at them individually in a vacuum. I think that you want to hear their story. I want to hear how you grew up. I want to hear about your mother and your father. I want to hear about your previous relationships because that's going to tell me everything I need to know about your mindset in general. I want to hear everything, and I want to, and I'm going to listen because then at that point I can decide if this situation is something worth me investing in, and is this going to give me what I want. And then once we decide to make that investment, then I'm going to have a talk with you about the rules of this situation because relationships are so confusing for so many people. Men are confused by feminism, women are confused by men. I think that you have to really have a conversation like, okay, how's this going to work, and how are we going to resolve disputes? How are we gonna manage our money together? What are your long-term goals? What are you trying to accomplish in your life? And how do you feel about the things I'm trying to do? How do you feel about my family? That's another thing too. A lot of people don't know this, but when you marry somebody, you are marrying their family. You are married, you are dating, and you're marrying their family. So if their family is a complete mess, that might be something to reconsider, unless they live far away from their relatives and don't have any contact with them, which creates a whole nother dynamic. But in general, I think that not considering the family of the person that you get with is a huge mistake. I really do. I really think that, again, because you're making an investment and it's not a financial investment, it's more important than money. You're making an investment of your life. Hey, I'm investing my life in you. I need to know every single thing. I need to do all my due diligence. In investing, they have that term that applies called due diligence. When you make a real estate investment, you do your due diligence. When you buy a business, you have to do your due diligence. Well, when you invest your life into a situation or another person, you better do your damn due diligence. And your due diligence can't just be measuring the size of her booty. And in fact, I have a friend who we had an interesting conversation that I wish other people could have listened in on. He's in his early 40s, and I'm not. I'm 51. And he was telling me, he said, "Hey man, I think I met the one." And I wish other people could have heard this conversation because it completely defeats the this myth that women over 35 are leftovers and all this other bullshit. That's just not true. Because he and I were laughing about it, he was telling me that her age was about 38, and I said, isn't it funny that there are people who really think that women over 35 are leftovers? And he said, yeah, man, I don't know where would somebody think something like that. And I said, yeah, because I remember I got to a point where I refused to date a woman under the age of 35. I didn't being under 35 was not even considered a plus. That was a negative because that means you're not mature yet in my mind. You're still a baby. You're still trying to, figure stuff out. And I ain't got time for that stupid stuff. And he's like, yeah, man. He said, the women over 35 are actually the ones that have their head screwed on straight are actually great people to interact with. And the other thing that he said that was really interesting, this is something he did that was really simple that he said represented a change in his dating pattern that really benefited him. As he said, one thing I did that was different was I spent 8 months getting to know her without meeting her in person at all. I saw what she looked like, but I did not want to be in her presence physically I wanted to get to know her from the inside out. And he said that that formed a much stronger bond. And he says now, man, he says now I can't wait to see her. She has a child, and her daughter's 3, my son is 4, and and this is great. And I like that. I like that conversation. I wanted to share it because I really think it's also very important to really have a broader conversation when you're talking about dating with children and stuff like that. Like, I think anybody who says anything that's like a hard fast rule, like don't date women with kids, or don't date somebody over a certain age, or don't date somebody below a certain income level, those are just stupid rules. Those are rules designed for dumb motherfuckers. Like, seriously, if you're stupid, then go ahead and apply a bunch of one-dimensional rules to your dating life and watch how many great opportunities you miss because you can only focus on one thing at a time. And maybe there are people out there that are just that stupid. Maybe there are people out there who simply don't know how to understand nuance and that every situation is different. Again, it doesn't mean that you necessarily want to be with somebody that has kids or you want to be with somebody who's over a certain age, but it does mean that maybe people are different. Maybe you could say, she's got 3 kids and I kind of wish she didn't have 3 kids, but man, she is such a great woman. That makes up for the fact that I might ideally not want to date a woman with 3 kids, right? I can adjust to that because she's such a great catch that this is something that I'm willing to adjust, acclimate myself to, right? And or I wish he wasn't a truck driver. I wish he was making $100,000 a year, but he's such an awesome man in every other way. That makes up for the income differential that I see here, right? And I really encourage you to be okay with that, right? I think that intelligent dating is very important. And part of the reason that you see so many broken relationships, so many unhappy people, so many baby mama, baby daddy situations is because people don't date intelligently. I think people date emotionally. I think they date irrationally. They date in a way that's maybe driven by the sex or whatever, and that's fine. But if you're really talking about trying to really break generational curses, if you're really talking about trying to build the Black community, like if you're really pro-Black, like let's just keep it real here. Like we talk about being pro-Black all the time. I can't sit around and bash Black women all day and call myself pro-Black. I just can't. I can express my concerns. I can talk about the things that frustrate me. I can talk about the things that I'm going to have to get used to. But if I'm just dogging the shit out of Black women all day, you're a white man right now, dude. You're not a Black man. There's nothing because anybody who loves Black people understands what Black people have gone through. Anybody who understands that even when you deal with a Black woman who is as broken as they come, the world did that to her, right? Maybe it started with her father not being there, which puts it back on us as Black men, right? Her father wasn't there. She got raped when she was 6, and then after that, she had to live in poverty, and then she got her ass beaten in her relationship. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to go date her, but it does mean that maybe some degree of compassion to say, look, I'm not going to date you, but I really wish you the best, and I still love you. Maybe that's the kind of approach we have to take. And I think the same thing is true on the other side as well. You have some women that will speak about Black men as if we're rodents, and some of them are like leaders in the Democratic Party. Simone Sanders, I think, was really speaking really harshly and negatively about Black men. I suspect the reason she hates Black men is 1, because we're the competition. She wants to date women too, and then 2, I think that there is a narrative within the Democratic Party where they have exterminated the Black male through Joe Biden's policies on mass incarceration. And now they're trying to complain about the people that they exterminated, right? So they're saying to the Black woman, hey, the reason Kamala Harris has a white husband is because Black men ain't shit. And the reason Ketanji Brown Jackson has a white husband is because Black men ain't shit. And Black men aren't present and they disappeared. Well, the reality, if you know the history, is that they made the Black man disappear. They got rid of the Black man. They exterminated Black communities with crack cocaine and mass incarceration and all these Joe Biden policies that ended up wiping your community clean. So anybody who really is in it, like, being Black ain't easy. Like, being really Black ain't easy. It's really hard because you're playing for a team that is not always the winning team. It's like literally the Black community in some areas, we are the losing team. Economically, to some extent, we're kind of the losing team. Emotionally, in terms of trauma. It kind of feels like the losing team. Family structure, it feels like the losing team. You're a black man. You deal with black women who unfortunately have gone through hell, easily triggered, traumatized. Odd behavior comes with that. It feels like you're part of the losing team. And the same thing with you're a woman. You're dealing with men who are broken and busted, never had a daddy, don't know nothing about being a man. You feel like you're on the losing team. So what tends to happen, I've noticed, is that you have these people, these liberals, these so-called liberal friends of yours, who will show you, they'll say, look, Serena Williams married a white man, and look at how wonderful her life is with that old pasty son of a bitch, right? Or Meghan Markle married Prince Harry, and isn't that so romantic? Such a fairy tale. Ooh, you can go get you a Prince Harry too, girl, right? And these narratives are they apply across the board, and you hear men saying the same thing, like, "Hey, dog, don't be dealing with these black women. You just go to Brazil. They got they got hoes all over Brazil, man." And I get it. I understand that the women, and some of those women are actually black, right? You have a lot of black people in Brazil that are wonderful people, but still, my argument would be, look, either you're trying to be African American or you're not. That's it. Either you're in the war for the African American community or you're not. So being in the war for the African American community, in my view, this is my perspective. I'm not telling anybody else what to think, but I'm going to tell you my point of view on this. In my mind, being in the war with the African American community means I got to sit in the middle of some shit. I got to sit in the middle of some shit that I don't have to sit in. I could easily, I went, 5 years before I married my wife, I said, I don't know if I'm gonna get married one day or not. Nobody's gonna make me do anything. But if I get married, I'm marrying me a black woman, and she's gonna be African American. I'm gonna get me a black woman, and I've got me a black woman from Gary, Indiana, one of the most traumatized, messed up, crazy places in the country, and and whatever comes with that, whatever baggage comes with her experience as an African American woman, I'm going to work with her to get through that. And I'm going to be willing to make whatever adjustments I have to make in order to head a black family in an honorable way. And because you cannot be pro-black if you're an anti-black woman, you cannot be pro-black if you're an anti-black man, you cannot be pro-black when you're an anti-black family. When you are pissing all over black children, or you're saying ridiculous things like why would anybody ever date a single mother with kids? That is one of the most ignorant things a human being can say, because she didn't make those kids by herself. She didn't make those kids by herself. It doesn't mean you have to go marry a single mom, but it does mean, my Lord Jesus, you had a single mother. Your mother was a single mom. How would you feel if somebody said your mother was like she got some kind of virus, like she's got cootie, she got monkeypox because she had children and she raised and fed your raggedy ass when nobody else did? I mean, just if anything, just shut up. Just be quiet. Just look, if you don't want kids, that's fine. If you can't afford to take care of kids, that's fine. If you don't feel comfortable, that's fine. But just shut the fuck up. Just because somebody's got anybody who's if you're a man, if you are a man, you are responsible for what is happening in your community. And as a man, when the children are suffering in your community, that is your responsibility, even if they're not your kids. Now, this is not a message for every man. Some men ain't gonna get it. Some men are gonna say, "Oh, I don't get it, man. Why would I want to?" That's fine. Sit to the side. And the real men in the room, I'm talking to you right now to just say, "Look, man, look. I'm not telling you who to date or how to date or whatever to do, but I'm just telling you that all these kids are our kids." So when these raggedy motherfuckers, this is why I get real impatient with these guys that go out here and just make babies and abandon them. These kids are everywhere. And these kids, if we don't intervene on some level in the lives of these children, they grow up and they become gangbangers. And next thing you know, your daughter then got shot up at a party by some child who was neglected his whole entire life because nobody took responsibility for that little soul who was growing up and being neglected by the world because his daddy abandoned him. A black man abandoned him. And so now he's growing up and now he's a menace to society and killing people because he feels like nobody loves him. It all starts with love. So I just really think that when you're talking about what it means to be pro-black, you got to figure out, how does black family fit into my definition of pro-blackness? This is not in any way me telling anybody what their dating preference needs to be. I am not on any level telling anybody you should go get married like I did. I waited till my 40s to get married. And believe me, marriage takes a lot of work. I totally don't blame you if you choose to do something different. What I am trying to say though is that some of this talk is kind of crazy and chaotic. And I think that there's a way to have intelligent conversations. And I would encourage anybody who gets it, anybody who gets what I'm saying here, the number one piece of advice I will give you right now, and then I'm going to be done for today, is date intelligently. Date intelligently. You know, you have an agenda. You have your own black agenda. Date people who are kind of on a similar agenda. You know, the knuckleheads that look good and all this other stuff. You got to walk. You got to know how to walk past that. You got to do your due diligence. Do your due diligence. Value yourself. Value your life. If you value your life, you won't let any raggedy person into your space. You won't let any girl come around you just because she's cute when she might be bringing all kinds of hell and toxins and all kinds of issues into your life. You're not gonna let any man in your bed just because you're a little bit lonely. Get yourself a goddamn vibrator, whatever you got to do, but find some way to be able to exercise discernment and discipline so that you're not letting messed up people come in and mess up what you got going on. You have big dreams, you have big goals, you have a lot to protect. You are an important person. You are, as your life in your mind, you should be as important as the president of the United States. And the with the president of the United States, they protect the president. You can't, just anybody can't get around the president. They don't have the president out here without security. The president, you can't get, you try to get close to the president, they'll beat you up and maybe shoot you. They don't let you get close to the thing that they value the most. If there's an emergency, they whisk the president off to make sure the president's safe. So in my view, your life, your reality, your space, your peace, your happiness should be as valuable to you as if you were the president of the United States. That's what you must do. In order to build a dream, you got to be able to really protect it. And I'm really telling on myself because this is a mindset that I pushed myself to embrace 15 years ago. Before anybody knew who Dr. Boyce Watkins was, before anybody cared, I told myself the first person that must care about who Boyce Watkins is Boyce Watkins. And I practiced every day reminding myself of how important I was and that I do matter and that the work and the vision that I had, that despite the fact that nobody knew what I was doing, nobody cared. I was in my little apartment up in Syracuse University all by myself. I said, I'm going to make the world care. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to protect my time. I'm going to protect the vision. I'm going to protect everything. And people thought I was a little bit weird because I treated my vision back then as if it was as important as it is actually right now. Now people care who I am. Now people talk about me. They do YouTube videos about me. They get 100,000 views, right? So now the world has caught up with where I started 15, 16 years ago. But I'm telling you, you got to be the first person to protect that ugly little baby called your life. And it may feel like an ugly baby because maybe things aren't going the way you want, or maybe you don't have any validation to show that you matter the way you should, but you have to be that first line of defense. So bottom line, point blank period, do your due diligence. I think I would think carefully about every single friend that I have. I would not even have phone conversations with people who were not there to bring something, anything less than positive, wonderful energy or something beneficial or something that's going to add value to the bottom line financially or otherwise. We're not having that conversation. And then also the toxic people that are in your space and in your ear, ask yourself, why do I have such little value for myself that I'm even allowing this son of a bitch to sit in my ear and spew a bunch of poison that's only going to make me feel bad? Who gave them the right to make you feel bad? You did. So I encourage you, if you got people in your life that are making you feel bad on a regular basis, revoke their access because you are important and you're worth it. I hope that makes sense. It starts with self-worth and self-love. And then at that point, everything comes out, it spins out of that. Well, thank you guys for listening. I didn't even have a plan for this podcast. It was just on my mind. And I hope that it helps somebody. And you know, and I guess for those who don't agree, I'd wish them the best too. They can find their philosophy from somewhere else. But I just want to see you win. I want to see you happy, and I want to see our community win as well. And there's a lot of confusion out here, and I would encourage you, if you want to get past this confusion, you got to get some guidance on this. So remember, going back to that word therapist, I can't underestimate how powerful the tools of therapy can be to help you figure out this thing called life. And you got to figure it out soon, because one day you're going to be old and gray and you're going to be on your deathbed and you're going to look back and wish you had done things different. Don't waste time. Go do it right now. Got it? Okay, good. All right. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. Thumbs up, share, subscribe. Also, I want to let you guys know, Lene Javette, I forgot to mention, Lene Javette is doing a Black Power retreat online this weekend. She's bringing together 29 Black women who are experts in all different walks of life, and it's pretty extraordinary what she's got going on. I actually put a link to the event on my website, boycewatkins.com. So if you'd like to go check out the Black Power retreat, feel free to go to boycewatkins.com. And that's it's being led by women. Anybody can attend, but I think it's designed by women, pretty much for women for the most part. So if that's your thing and you're into that kind of thing, then feel free to go to boycewatkins.com and take a look. I co-signed Lene Javette. She's one of the best business strategists in the country and an awesome Black woman. And she's got 29 experts that are backing her up this weekend. So take care, guys. Have a wonderful day. God bless you. Thank you for listening. And I will see you soon. Take care now. Peace.
Here we are, clearing the isms, cataclysm, great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boyce TV. Here we are.